We're live
Yes.
from the same place.
are
It's
in
so weird.
The same room. Oh, so
I
weird.
just want to touch you. Make sure you're real.
No. All right.
So I'm Amy.
And I'm Derrick. I'm having drinks with Amy. And we are
In person.
in the same room. Like, this is not an optical illusion.
Yeah.
And we are at Stony Point Retreat Center in upstate New York. And we are at UNCO.
17.
UNCO 17. UNCO 17 East.
Which is short for unconference.
Unconference.
In case you're wondering.
And so we should, what are you drinking?
Oh, I am drinking sangria made
Yes.
by Carol Howard Merritt.
Friend of the show, Carol Howard.
Friend of the show. And I honestly don't know what's in it, but it's delicious.
Excellent.
I feel like that's always a good criteria for a drink.
Absolutely. Yeah. Deliciousness.
Do I know what's in it?
Doesn't matter.
Does it taste good? Yes. Okay. That's all that matters.
And I'm drinking scotch.
And I trust the person who made it. That's a very
Yeah.
important factor.
Carol wouldn't put something weird in your sangria because that would be odd. Yes. And
I'd
I'm
be
drinking,
more devious than she is.
Yeah, that's not her. And a friend of ours brought Balvenie, which is one of my favorite scotches. So that is what I'm drinking. So we actually met at an UNCO.
Yes.
That was
West.
UNCO
15.
15? Was it 15? 14? 15? Anyway, it was one of those years, 14 or 15.
Well, I didn't go in 16, and then I went twice before that.
Okay.
So it would have been 14. Yes.
It would have been 14. Okay, cool. And so
Making me remember stuff.
Yeah. So this is like my sixth UNCO, I think.
Were you at the first one?
I was not at the first one. I was at the second one.
I just want to say goodnight.
Oh, be right back.
Okay. How's the sangria?
See you tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
All right, see you guys
Excellent.
tomorrow. You're here all day tomorrow?
Till 3.
Till 3. Okay, I'll be back before 3.
Okay.
Fine.
Awesome. Bye.
Tell everyone I said goodnight.
Yeah, they're in there.
Oh.
We're live.
This one?
You know, Carly always makes fun of me for making friends.
Yeah. Well, that's a horrible trait to have.
She's just
Making
like,
friends.
she's always like, you've never met a person that wasn't immediately and instantly your friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, but real person.
Yeah. No, that's an awful trait. You should
And I'm
apologize.
from Kansas. And that's
apologize
actually
for
one
that
of the
all the
things,
time.
never apologizing about that. But it's actually one of the things that I noticed when I moved from San Francisco to Kansas City was that, San Francisco, I couldn't be my nice self.
Mm.
My default and preferred mode is open and happy and kind
Mhm.
and not afraid to strike up a conversation. And in San Francisco, I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So
Because it's a city full of smug jerks.
it's just a big city.
Okay.
And people don't know what to do
So we won't.
with that kind of energy.
Okay. So we won't say.
I mean, some of them are smug jerks, but it's more that I just didn't like the reaction
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And in San Francisco, you don't know who's crazy.
Mm.
So, and generally the people who are willing to talk to you are crazy. And sometimes they're sneaky crazy, so you don't know that they're crazy until you're in a conversation, deep in a conversation, and then you're just where's my exit? How do I get out of here? This is
Wait
terrible.
a minute.
Yeah. So, after so much time, after so many of those experiences, I just was nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
tangent.
Yeah, that was a nice little tangent. So what is Unconference? What is UNCO?
See,
You
this
describe it.
This is the problem. It is a conference.
Mhm.
It is unlike other conferences in the sense that we make up the agenda as once we get here.
Yes.
So we don't know what topics we're going to discuss until we get here. And it is discussion based.
Yes.
So most conferences there's a speaker and they speak, and then you might have some like discussion, like plenaries or just other speakers speaking at you, but it's a lot of sitting and listening unless you're speaking.
Mhm.
And at UNCO, it's more about like people sharing their experiences and kind of like establishing the group wisdom and affirming the people who are in the room. And to me, it's that default of affirmation that's really powerful about UNCO.
Yeah. Default of affirmation. What? Say more about that.
So people's attitude by default is affirming. So like, you know, people come up with crazy ideas that in any other room would be absolutely ridiculous, and the reaction would be no.
Yeah.
That's impossible. You can't do that. Whatever. And here at UNCO, it's just like, oh, okay. Well, how can we do that? You know? And so, like, just because no one in the room has thought of it before doesn't mean it can't happen. And just because we don't really know how to do it doesn't mean it can't happen.
Right.
And
never let that stop us.
There's not funding for this. Oh well, we'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a place to have your imagination. And I can sit on the floor and I can walk around and I can draw and color and.
You've been coloring a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I've actually caught myself doodling a lot more this year than I normally do, which is I don't know.
I feel like that's one of the gifts of a smaller group.
Yeah, we're a little smaller this year, which has been fun. It's been and I feel like I've no one's falling through the cracks this year, which is, I mean, and it doesn't. Someone falls through the cracks, but this year just kind of feels like I know everyone and
there's no since we're a small group, it's not like there are smaller subgroups that stick together.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Except for the two people who sneak off to make a web show.
Well, or make out like you and Shannon did.
Well, okay. All right. So I'm a part of all of the exclusive groups. So
everybody wants their piece of Derrick. Let's be clear.
It's weird. It's weird. So one of the things about UNCO I think is great is like you said, we bring the conference with us and
Burning Man.
Like Burning Man. We're a lot like Burning Man.
It's the Burning Man of church conferences.
We are the Burning Man of progressive Christianity, which I think is something that we've actually been striving for.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that is great about that is there is so much wisdom. There is so much experience that all of us have, and we so often feel like we come to conferences, we come to Con Ed out of a sense of need, out of a sense of what we're lacking. And coming here is a reminder that we have the answers.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to be pushed, and sometimes we have to be challenged, and sometimes we have to be in a space that's safe enough to say the crazy thing that's in our head. But we have the answers, and that's just kind of a fun environment to be in.
Well, it's the opposite of a lot of church environments. Like this idea that somehow it already inherent in our bodies and our experiences is wisdom and the ability to create new things and be experts and authorities is like really different.
And liberating. Like, I mean, it feels...
I don't have to be anybody other than me.
Yeah, and it feels good to feel like, you know what? I haven't been screwing this up. My first UNCO, which was...
Or maybe you haven't.
Even if
you do, it's okay.
Exactly.
Like, messing up is okay.
Messing up is okay. And we talk about that a lot, how failure is actually going to be like essential to the future of the church, that we have to have people who are willing to fail.
Yep.
My first UNCO in 2011 was when I was in my first full-time church. It was very hard, and we were having conversations about closing the church.
Oof.
And to say at that first UNCO, I want to talk about closing a church and have a room full of like 15 people sitting around talking about, you know, we're not going to close next year, but we might close in 5 years, or hey, we actually just closed the church. And it was one of those things where up to that point I had felt so incredibly lonely in my ministry, and then all of a sudden there are these people who are having these conversations with me that just felt so rewarding. And so I don't know, I just at that time it just made me feel so much less alone. And UNCO was a part of, as I recall, was a part of your journey with Sanctuary for the Arts.
Yes. So, let's see. Sorry. Jeff Chaffetz, who is my Sanctuary for the Arts co-founder. He and I like first talked about dancing church stuff back in like 2007.
Okay.
And we actually did a little workshop together, and it was really lovely. And then like he moved away out of the Bay for a few years, and like I was finishing seminary and some other things. And so it was after UNCO in 2013 that he sent an email to a bunch of people he had talked to about dance church and who were dancers and whatnot. And he sent it to like 15 or 20 people or something, and I was the only person who responded. And I was like, yes, please, can we, let's do this. And so he was like, okay, well, if we do it in the Presbyterian system, we can get funding. And so, you know, we just immediately had a lot of resources from UNCO, where people were excited about the idea. There were other people we knew who had started churches who could guide us in the process. It was a whole
friends. Maybe you can help the lowest. The 400 wing of this place, April 400. There's 500, the 600.
I would assume
probably through there.
I'll give it a try.
Sorry.
I might be back.
Ask them, they'll know.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Public spaces. Whatever, it's cool.
But so you and
I'm just glad it wasn't homeless. Yeah, so I got an email from him and I was like, yes. And there were these people that he had talked to at UNCO who had like been through the process and could kind of help us. And like that was invaluable. So the UNCO process was and event was the permission basically and the encouragement that Jeff needed to send that initial email and get the ball rolling. And then the UNCO community just in general was a huge support, both personally and professionally throughout the entire process. So like Jeff and I are pretty clear that without UNCO, Sanctuary for the Arts probably would not have happened, which is pretty cool because my understanding is that it's not the only project that has come out of UNCO that has, you know, really been a huge risk.
Yeah.
And that this event was the launch pad for those things.
Yeah. Carol's husband, Brian, who was also on the show, did Mercy Junction, which was a justice center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Still is a justice center in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that got started out of conversations that happened here. We've had a book that was published out of the efforts of people here.
Faithful Resistance.
Faithful Resistance by
amazing.
Rick Chase. You should probably get on the show.
Amazing.
It's a great book. I've been using that with my church through Lent, and it's been a wonderful conversation tool. And we, you know, there have been things like Liturgy Link. There have been things like, there have been other new church developments that have come out of our conversations. And this is a place where a lot of things kind of get birthed. for lack of a
It's
better
a bit of
term.
an incubator,
It's a bit of an incubator.
but it's not very well funded.
It's not a very well funded
It's not
incubator,
like
it's
not like you
a,
pitch to VCs at the end of the.
right. We need to work on that.
Yeah.
One of us needs to get independently wealthy. I choose you.
I'm okay with that. I would have to like play the lottery or something.
Yeah. And we are at Stony Point, which is a Presbyterian retreat center.
Which is why there are random old people walking around. There's the Presbyterian women are also retreating here right now. Yeah.
And
they're adorable.
Kind of. So is this your first time being to Stony Point?
Yes. And I I'm so proud of my successful navigation of both the New York subway and the New Jersey Transit to get here.
Excellent.
Which involved running from one side of the train station to the other, up and down several flights of stairs with a heavy suitcase.
Nice.
Yes.
You're a world traveler.
And I hadn't had lunch yet.
See, that's the most amazing part of the story.
I was like, I got into my seat finally and I was like a little woozy. I was like, afraid I was going to pass out.
Yeah.
But I made it. And it turns out New Jersey Transit, you can buy your ticket through their app, through their mobile app. I was like, why doesn't everyone do
should
this?
Do that. Stony Point is, so this is my third UNCO East, and I love Stony Point. Like, I love this location.
What do you love the most?
So beyond it being a beautiful space, beyond it being, kind of off the beaten path,
Welcoming.
It's really a place where the ethos of the place is remarkable. So they have a garden here, and the garden sources a lot of the food that is served in the cafeteria. They do a lot of things around fair trade and food justice and sustainability. They have an interfaith community that is a part of the life and operation of the place. They have an artist in residence. They have, this is just kind of like to me, a retreat center can be all kinds of things. And for a lot of people, you just kind of come to your retreat center and you go and you rest, or you go and you have your program. But there is so much mission and vision to what this place can be. And it really feels like it fits with the ethos of UNCO. That this is a place that is kind of built around justice. It's built around
and it feels like it's a place that is a vibrant ministry of its own. And part of their mission is hospitality. And they live that very well. I've been here 36 hours, and I immediately it was really a welcoming, easy to navigate environment.
And so I just love this place. This is one of those holy ground places for me, where I step onto Stony Point and I feel the presence of God. I feel my spirit feels better when I'm here. So
there is kind of like a monastery kind of vibe.
A monastery where they let you have scotch. So
and sangria.
So we like that part. And
they make you wear wristbands to get meals.
But that's just accounting. That's not a bad thing. It's just,
I know. I've just never had that before. It's cool. It's not paper. You can take a shower.
Yes. This one has to sit on a shower. So what conversations have been that we've had, and that's the other thing about UNCO is real fast and intense. In the time that we've been here, what conversations have we had that have been impactful for you? What conversations in the last couple of days have been what kind of conversations have been just kind of bubbling up for you?
There's the constant conversation that you and I are always engaged in, which is self-care. and like, how do we do it? What stops us from doing it? How do we support each other to do it? All of those things. And so that has been really, like, I have to like hold myself back from just like completely taking over the conversation and just going into teacher mode, because I just have so much information and like knowledge and wisdom about that, that it's hard for me to just like let discussion happen and let people have their questions. And, you know, it's like, I just want to be like, this is the answer to all your questions. I can help. But you know, I refrain from doing that. I practice some serious restraint. And I had a couple really fruitful like mini sessions with people today during the break, and that was cool. You know, it's really amazing to like take 30 minutes and have like facilitate like real breakthroughs for people. So that was a nice like affirmation of my work and my gifts. And then I enjoyed the conversation about women's voices. And another thing I appreciate about UNCO is that we're okay with not having answers.
Yeah.
Like, we can ask questions and then sort of live those questions and live in that place of uncertainty. And I mean, I live in that place anyway, but at UNCO, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of like community spaces where I can claim uncertainty and people will be there with me and hang out in that place of uncertainty with me. So that's something that it's like part of me feels like incomplete when the questions go unanswered. And at the same time, like, there's power in being able to claim the question in the group. And like, because then the group body helps to hold the question. And so that's really cool. And I wish more churches would be able to do that as well. Like, especially in Bible study and all, you know, like other areas of congregational life. Like if we could really sit with our questions and just accept the uncertainty and accept what we don't know. Like, I feel like there's this like lie that a lot of churches embody, which is like, we know all the answers and we know what's happening. And so there's not that vulnerable space of uncertainty. What about for you? Are there conversations that you are particularly thankful for?
So I would say that the conversation about women's voices was really important. I think we're in a time where I observe as a man a lot of my female colleagues in ministry being silenced and or having to defend where they're coming from in some ways that I as a man never will have to. And it's really important for me to listen to those conversations. And I feel like in our current political climate that, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I do feel like our current political climate is going to make that worse. And I think it's going to make
it already has.
It has already made it worse. And I think it's going to get harder for women's voices to get through. I mean, you continue to see pictures of Trump signing things and in rooms that are filled with men, usually old white men. Rich old white men. You know, his crew.
Like insanely wealthy.
Insanely wealthy.
Like not just rich, but
I know. You know, like stupid rich. And so
like criminally rich. Like, let's be clear.
Yes.
Criminally wealthy people.
Yes. Like literally criminals.
Yeah.
So I really think that's an important listening conversation for me of how do I make myself more attentive to women's voices? how do I signal boost for my female colleagues, and how do I, for lack of, how do I, one of the things we talked about is that the silencing of women's voices is a man's issue.
Yeah.
Like, we have to use our power differently.
Women were just born silent.
Right.
Like men silenced
they were
women.
actively silenced by men. So that was important. That was a really good conversation for me to be a part of. And then, I think
Hi, Hazel. And Christiana.
We also had a really interesting conversation about funding and doing some things for church funding.
I wasn't part of that. What happened?
So we've talked about just kind of talked about some opportunities that churches have. So my church, where I serve right now, we sold our building, and now we're sitting on money. And part of what I'm thinking about, I would love to see happen with the money that we're sitting on, is using that to fund other ministries that are just getting off the ground and things like that. So I mean, that's something
like to be an incubator or like a patron.
Exactly that kind of thing. But also realizing that there are a lot of churches in the same kind of boat that are sitting on buildings that the congregations themselves can no longer maintain and keep up.
Yeah. And
that could be like, this is not just something that's isolated with the church I'm serving. This could be a model for funding new and innovative ministries and new and innovative organizations. And so really excited about that. What's really been interesting is that in the area of Northern Virginia where I work, because our church did the heavy lifting, there are other churches that are kind of following suit and starting to do very similar things. So
trendsetters.
Well, and this church, I mean, all of this happened before I got there, but they did a lot of hard work, and they're turning the space where they're the building's going to be demolished sometime soon, which I'm actually kind of excited to watch. But they're going to be building affordable housing there, which is a huge need in Arlington, Virginia. So I think we can be a lot more creative with the resources we have. We operate so often from places of scarcity instead of realizing that most of our churches have one giant asset. Yeah. And if we learn how to use it more creatively and thoughtfully and honestly faithfully, then we could actually do a lot more things. So it was good to have that conversation, realizing that we're not alone in that. There were a couple other folks who were kind of feeling that might be the direction that their churches are going. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool because I think we're in a place where UNCO is a my Sharona's playing in the other room.
I was like,
it's hard. It's hard not to rock out a little bit when my Sharona's on. It just is. But I think UNCO, a lot of what UNCO has been about is the transition from what church has been to what church will be.
Right.
And
what church is becoming.
What church is becoming. And I think that model in terms of freeing ourselves of buildings and freeing ourselves of property, I think that's like a very tangible, real sign of how we make those transitions from what is to what can be.
Yeah.
So that's been a really, really good conversation for me. So we also talked a little bit about the progressive
Christian Media Project.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Apparently Katie Jo's doing something really similar, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. But yeah.
It's actually different, but
okay.
We can talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So the Progressive Christian Media Project is sort of born out of a desire to provide media and resources to folks who are progressive but may not have community to be progressive with. So, and it's progressive Christian media because it's blogs, and it is a blog, but within the blog is digital media of all kinds. So, like a person could paint a thing and then take a picture of the painting and then put it up onto the blog. A person could, like the Drinks with Amy broadcasts will be on the blog. Podcasts will be there. People could post sermons and liturgies and like sermon prep kind of stuff. So it's really just any digital media that's coming from a progressive Christian standpoint that is rooted in story. So everyone who's contributing is clearly contributing from their own experience. So like I'm not going to write a story about like the Dakota Access Pipeline and like what's happening there from my living room in Kansas City. Right? Like I could, but what would be better is for me to tell the story of living down the Missouri River from the Dakota Access Pipeline and like how that will impact me and what I'm experiencing. Right? So it really is like a narrative storytelling platform, and the format that those stories take is in a variety of ways. So I'm excited about that. And we have a steering committee. We're working on getting our editorial review board together. I have a sort of mock-up of the site done. And so things are moving along, and, we have a base of contributors. But, we're looking for a few more, so.
And that's something that I think, particularly for folks who are watching us, who are thinking about content creation. I think one of the things that we really need to be pushing is for people to be telling their stories.
Yes.
Because right now there is a very narrow story of Christianity that is being told in the media.
Yep.
And what happened?
Oh.
Dark. What happened?
Sorry, we're also on Facebook Live.
It says that it's still going, so I'm gonna just keep talking.
It looks like your camera died.
That's weird.
Because it's not on.
My little green light went off.
You want to finish and start over?
Yeah, let's see what happens. Anyway, and let's start with part 2. There it is. Anyway.
Part 2.
For those of you who are
UNCO,
on
17.
Facebook Live, you're getting this in 2 parts.
Yeah.
But right now there is a
I'm switching to rum and pineapple.
Okay. There's a monopoly on who's telling Christian stories right now.
Right. And those are the same people that got Trump elected. So
yes.
Screw that.
And we don't want that.
Nope.
Nope. And I think people need to be able to see that Christianity, not only is it not a monolith, but the tradition and the history of Christianity has been of a movement that is for the poor, that is for the oppressed, for the marginalized. And that story needs to be told.
Yeah.
And that story needs to be, and the stories of people of color need to be told. The stories of LGBTQ people need to be told. And
and so when like a person wakes up in the morning, like, I want PCM to be like part of their devotional even or something like, because they're like living in Kansas City. I know a ton of people who don't really go to church, or maybe they do go to church, but if they do go to church, they're usually the heretic in the room. And like,
which sometimes is fun, but oftentimes it's exhausting.
It's tiring. And then, they're maybe like their whole family is Republican and they're not. And, they just don't know what to say to their evangelical Christian family and like all these different things. So this is kind of an answer to that experience and need. So I'm focusing on educating so that like helping people grow and then keeping them inspired. So those are the 3 words that are educate, grow, and inspire.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the vision that's guiding the project.
So you've said writers, so there'll be like blog posts and hopefully some other podcasts will be on there.
Yep.
And the show will be on there.
Yep.
And hopefully like some art and painting and things like that. Photography.
Yep.
Maybe some poetry.
Yep. Some like full on like stories.
Stories, like short
personal
stories.
And,
like fiction and nonfiction.
Parables.
Maybe like short films.
Yeah.
Like, because I know some folks who are filmmakers who I would love to get involved with this project.
Bring it on.
I know some folks who, I just feel like we could really go all out with like telling progressive Christian stories.
You could do documentaries. There could be all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of things. And that,
you could write a book. I don't know.
Why not? Let's put a book out.
Let's aim for the stars.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. So,
because we're actually in the same room and we can
actually cheers.
Actually,
We've instead of like our virtual cheersing that we do, which is really not as fun.
No,
not as fun at all. So, how would you, you've been a part of the UNCO community, and I think that is an actual adequate description of who we are a community. It is a community. What would you say has been the value of this community to you, both in terms of your ministry and in terms of just kind of your personal well-being?
So I guess one of the major things is that before I came to UNCO, I didn't have a lot of friends who were spiritual leaders. Because I'd been in the tech world for a couple of years and all my friends from seminary had moved away. And I just was like, I didn't have many peers that were spiritual leaders. Like I knew older people who were pastors in the city and stuff like that, but I didn't have any peers really. And so UNCO is a place where I found that. So that on a personal level has been incredibly valuable to me. And then also on the level of, so like in seminary, one of my struggles was that there was no one really on campus who could teach me how to be an entrepreneur, and stay true to my call and vocation and spirituality and faith. So, UNCO was one of the first places that I found people who were working within the church to change the church. Because I had decided back in seminary that I was going to work outside the church. And then that worked for a little while, but then I missed being in the church. So I was like, okay, well, how is this going to work? Like, how am I going to get back into this and whatever? So UNCO was a major part of me finding a place in the institution, which is still a pretty like peripheral space. Yeah. But the UNCO community helps me feel really connected with the institutional church in a way that I would not be in my day-to-day life.
Sure.
So that has been really valuable. Yeah, what was your question?
I asked how the community of UNCO has impacted your life?
Yeah, so like after UNCO 15, like there was a regular phone call of spiritual entrepreneurs, and we called ourselves the ecclesiastical free agents. I still don't really know what that means, but
it's a great thing to say, though.
I was like, okay, you know, and for a year we talked like every other week, you know, and it was just such a nice, like, just group of people to be checking in with and like kind of struggling next to. I'd felt very alone and isolated in my journey as a spiritual entrepreneur. And so to find other people who were doing it, and not just doing spiritual entrepreneurship outside of the church, because there's a lot of that that's happening, and I'm a fan of that, and that's great. But to find people who are spiritual, who are entrepreneurs, and who hadn't given up on the church yet was really, really powerful. And people who were like, didn't have any like denial or fantasy or misconception about the state of the institution. Like when I was critical of the institution, no one was offended.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you're not going to offend a whole lot of people here being critical of institutional
of
church.
anything, really.
Yeah, not really.
So, and then just being able to stay connected through Facebook, and like people are like, oh yeah, like people are so generous. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, let's keep talking, let's keep this conversation going, let's stay checked in, you know. So it's not just like you get together once a year and that's it. It's like you get together once a year and that's when you're in person together, and then the rest of the time, like, you're connected virtually.
Yep.
Like we are with Drinks with Amy and stuff like that. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, that's what the community has provided for me, and I'm like, you know, trying to give back. But yeah. How about you?
I think one of the primary issues of ministry that no one prepares you for, but everyone seems to feel, is the loneliness.
Yeah.
And one of the things that UNCO's community has done for me in the last 6 years is that it's a place where I've been able to express that loneliness, realize that I'm not alone in my loneliness, and then to some extent really alleviate that loneliness.
Yeah.
Because as I don't say this. I don't say this. I don't know. Like, I'm struggling with words here. Ministry is hard in a way that is unique.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like, you know, every job has its own unique pressures.
Yeah.
But I feel like the ways in which ministry is difficult and challenging are very unique to the ministry. And
be that, or, you know, clergy or laity, like anyone in spiritual leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as well-meaning as friends, family may be, unless they've done the work, they can't understand the pressure, the loneliness, the amount of self that gets absorbed into being a spiritual leader.
Yep.
And so you need communities of people where you can be completely safe, completely raw, completely open. And UNCO has been that for me in the last 6 years. When I went through my divorce, it was UNCO people who rallied around me. When we have, right now we have people in our community who are going through really hard things, and we're, you know, I just watch this community like spring into action when people are hurting. And I watch this community, how can we care for folks who are grieving? How can we care for people who are going through bad calls? How can we care for people who lose a job? How can we care for people
who piss us off?
Like,
I mean, you know, like people in the UNCO community make mistakes and do shitty things, and it's like, you know what? Everybody has a bad day.
Mm-hmm. And
you know,
and this community is loving and grace-filled and honest. I mean, you know, I think we call each other out on our bullshit all the time, in really good and healthy ways. But ultimately, like, kind of once you're a part of the community, you're a part of the community, and I really feel like in a crisis, the people that I want to reach out to are my UNCO family, and
in order to receive that support, you reach out for it.
Exactly.
Like I mean, and I've had that same experience. Like, you know, I'm just guessing that there are probably people in the UNCO community who haven't had the same support that we have had.
Sure.
Which, you know, like, we can't support what we don't know is happening.
Sure.
So if you're an UNCO person and you're going through some shit and you haven't told anyone about it, please tell us about it.
Yeah. So, what else? I mean, any kind of final thoughts about, like, what else would you want? Like, whether it's, you know, someone who's kind of outside of this world, or someone who, like, what else would you want people to know about UNCO?
I kind of half jokingly describe it as church camp for pastors. Because my church camp experience was really fun.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, we talked about God and Jesus and stuff, but, like, that was just like a small bit of what actually happened, which was, like, the kids at church camp, who were, like, the nerdiest kids in school, were the coolest people at camp. Like, I don't know what that's about, but it's like that whole, like, teenage hierarchy just gets dumped on its head.
Yeah.
And I feel like UNCO is the same sort of space where it's like,
that's kind of true.
It's like we're all super big nerds in our own way, and so, like, we're all cool, and we're able to really appreciate each person's gifts and each person's coolness in a way that is separate from any of the criticisms or judgments that exist in the world. So I feel like we're all pretty good about, like, checking the outside world at the door. And so, like, if you're, like, a person of faith and, like, you're critical of the church in its current state and you don't feel like you really have a place to be yourself and voice your concerns and your dreams and your hopes, like, UNCO is a place to do that. As long as you're willing to have completely open expectations and an open mind and an open heart, like, you get out of it what you put into it. So, you know, if you're closed off, you're not going to have a very good experience. If you come in with just completely open, it'll probably be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you'll probably want to come back. And then you'll be like, wait, how many of these are there? And how many times can I do this every year? And then you'll be like, how many days of PTO do I have? Or, like,
right.
how many frequent flyer miles do I have?
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I had flyer miles.
Oh, there you go.
Like, I didn't even, like, I hadn't checked it in a while. And then I was like, UNCO East is happening. Like, maybe I could go. And then I was like, maybe I can't go. And then I was like, points! I have reward points. Thank you, Southwest.
Yes,
I had just enough. Like,
nice.
yeah. And there was a sale. Like, it all just lined up. And I was like,
All works out.
awesome. I had a friend who lives in Brooklyn, and she said I could stay there for a few days. I mean, it's
Nice.
like dominoes. So,
Nice.
so I'm here.
Yeah. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
What do you tell people about UNCO?
What's
What's your pitch?
What's my pitch? It's the best continuing ed you could possibly ask for.
Yeah.
In that, it's less that you're being taught by an expert and more that you're discovering your own expertise.
Yes, and I love that there are like some stellar experts in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like nobody knows that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Experts Anonymous.
Yeah, exactly.
where it's like you can walk in and like have like everyone's on equal footing.
Yeah.
And then later you're like, oh wait, you're the former moderator of the PCUSA, or like, oh my gosh, you're Carol Howard Merritt, or like, and then it's like, oh, these people are kind of a big deal. I mean, but like, yeah. Like
Yeah.
Rick Ufford Chase, who runs this place, and I guess is a pretty big deal in the Presbytery world. Whatever. Like he walked into the dining hall today because he lives here, and I was like, I saw his name tag, and I was like, Rick, and he was like, Amy, like, because I was wearing a name tag, not because like he knew who I was, but because I was wearing a name tag. But it was so great because the interaction was just so like, yeah, we're a couple friends, because like, and I know his name through UNCO, so my experience of him is totally separate from like the prestige of his position in the institution or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah.
It's like real communion.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't matter how long people have been doing ministry. Like I don't experience any like patronization. Like no one talks down to anyone else. It's like we all have our gifts, we all have our expertise, and it's all welcome.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that includes, seminarians, that includes folks contemplating seminary, that no one's experienced.
Retired clergy.
Yeah, all the way from people considering seminary to people who have retired from ministry. Like there is
people who are doing non-traditional,
people doing weird shit, and that's both lay and clergy, and it's always so rich, the things that are being brought to this space, and I just tell people, like, you're not only are you going to learn a lot, but you also get a great community out of the deal.
Mm-hmm. And I love that it's like whatever like topics are in the room is what gets discussed.
Yep.
So it's not like you're going to a conference about church planting and that's what you're going to talk about. It's like today we talked about self-care. We talked about women's voices. We talked about progressive Christian media. We talked about
addiction.
We talked about being in that place of like not knowing what's next, but really wanting to know what's next and how uncomfortable that is. Like we had a whole hour to talk about that feeling, one feeling.
And there was a lunch discussion about
fiction
and theology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be
there was a conversation about money.
There's a conversation about money, and tomorrow morning at breakfast there's going to be a conversation about
corporate church,
decorporatizing the church, which I'm very excited.
Yeah, like I learn new words when I come here because they're words that people have made up, which is awesome.
We make them up. We make up
fantastic.
lots of words here, which is another thing that I really love about UNCO, is that we make up a lot of words.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are the things that I tell people, that you're gonna learn a lot, but you're also gonna just find this amazing community of people, and yeah.
People aren't afraid to talk about really anything.
Nope.
Which is
they bring at its best, people bring their whole selves to this, and that's what really makes it a rich experience.
And it gives, and the people who do that give permission to others to bring their whole self.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you have going on? What's going on in Amy Land?
Well, my 9:30 a.m. Saturday morning pre-dance class for 3.5 to 5-year-olds is full.
Nice.
So we're adding an 11 a.m.
Cool.
Very exciting.
Remind me to show you the video of my daughter's dance recital.
Yes, please. Adorable. I already know it's adorable.
It's totally.
And then continuing, I have just two open spots in my spiritual direction practice. 2, which is very exciting. And so you can go to my website, amydianeshoemaker.com, to sign up for a free consultation. It's 30 minutes. Just do it.
Just do it.
And then I'm teaching this Friday night, I'm teaching an interplay class at Yoga Patch in Kansas City.
Cool.
And then the fourth Wednesday of the month, I'm teaching an interplay class at Plaza Wellspring in Kansas City. And I'm doing that with Davy Wetterer, and it's going to be like a hoopla for her. And then my birthday is May 23rd. So just get ready, because I don't know. I guess you don't have to get ready. I need to get ready.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Cool.
And we're talking, this is happening again. We'll be back in our own respective domains.
It's going to be sad.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Food?
Well, I think we're going to start talking about food. Because that's kind of where my life is right now.
Because we love to eat.
We love to eat, but also like talking about food justice and like all that sort of stuff that I like to talk about. Because like it's gardening season, which makes me so happy. I get to spend all of my time in my garden now. And the church where I'm working, we have just so we sold our building, but there were 2 plots of land that were connected to the building that we bought back. And we're going to turn it into community green space and community garden. And I'm so excited because like basically that means that I get to like garden at home and then go to work at garden.
Yeah. You're not just a figurative gardener.
Yeah.
You're a real one.
Yeah.
You're a literal gardener.
I'm a literal gardener. And so this is the most wonderful time of the year for me. So yeah, that's
you did inspire me to commit to 4 pots of plants.
Nice. What are you growing?
Flowers.
Nice.
I went with my dad to this hardware store that was having a $5 hanging basket sale.
Nice.
So every hanging basket was $5.
Nice.
So I got 4 of them. And one of them is like a variety basket of like, red salvia and I can't remember what else is in it. Some petunias and a thing I can't remember the name of.
Okay.
And then the other ones were like these viney things with yellow flowers. And I found out that there's a giant rose bush at my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So like I thought it was a rose bush because it had thorns on it and the leaves looked right, but it hadn't flowered yet. So I was like, I'm not sure. Carly sent me a picture yesterday when she got home. Bright red roses all over it. Like the red, like the pinkish red that's like not quite magenta, not quite red, but like super bright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was like, what?
Got a rose bush.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Amazing.
I know. I was
proud
like,
of you. Yay. Yeah. Yay for growing things.
Yeah.
I'm all for growing things. So cool. Yeah. So, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about food and growing stuff and food justice.
And like growing things that you then eat.
Growing things that you then eat. Because that's really the fun part.
Growing your own food, which I would invite you to maybe think about how people who are renting space could do that as well.
I have answers for that.
Yes! Because I'm going to want to take that shit with me when I move.
Container gardening, it's a good thing.
My grandpa used to grow tomato plants out the bottom of a bucket.
Tomatoes are incredibly resilient.
So like he would put dirt in the bucket and hang the bucket on the porch, and then the tomato vine would grow down out of the bucket.
Yeah. I know.
I was like, what? It was.
Plants are amazing.
It looked kind of hillbilly though, because it was like a 5-gallon bucket from like the hardware store. Like it wasn't decorative. It was like purely functional.
It wasn't like the fancy bucket.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
That's okay.
Anyway,
All
awesome.
right, so that's it for
That's
us.
Drinks with Amy live from UNCO. Woo!
All right. Bye.
Normally I say bye to you, but
I know. You don't have to.
I don't have to.
We can hang out some more. Yay.
bye.